movement in Lyft has been really wild. The continuation of this growth is what's really surprising to me. So I've really been kind of like thinking about it, talking about it, just checking in on it to see how it's going. So thank you, everybody. Nick and Brandon, thank you guys for joining us in chat. Thank you, Organic Farming, and Gary. It's awesome to see you guys. Thank you.
A lot of love today. Let's go.
Yeah, we got a whole lot of love. So this phenomenon is nuts to me because like this past week, really from the past like 2 days almost, it's up 40%. The past year, it's up about 60%. So like the overwhelming majority of that growth have come from this, earnings, but also the fat finger is definitely being discussed quite a bit today. Lyft CEO is coming on these freaking interviews with a smug smile, like, oopsie, sorry, that was my bad. Right. And they're like, yeah, no, that's just sorry about that. Like, you think my stock's up 30%, my bad. And I just he's taking responsibility for it, which is great. But I'm interested in this theory around like a bunch of short sellers just got stopped out. And now we're seeing like this price action sort of continue. It's difficult to say either way. And like Nick, we're talking about this over in chat, which is like, they might, whether they win the lawsuit, that's a different question, but I feel like there's grounds for this. Like, market manipulation doesn't necessarily have to be intentional, does it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, no, totally. Like, I think, and even, I guess there's a difference with like a lawsuit versus like, criminal charges by the SEC for like manipulation. It was probably not intentional.
And like, there has to be like a protocol for this.
Totally.
I think it's fine, but it's probably
not. If there's anything on the SEC.
Yeah, you can go ahead and check it out. But all I know is that it was like the most, I don't know, I've seen in a while.
SEC. So 20 hours ago. Okay. Yeah. Wait, no, that's a different. So September 18th, 2023. Lyft to pay $10 million civil penalty over disclosure failures. But then 20 hours ago, there's only one article on this from The Logic, who I've never heard of. SEC calls for AI guardrails after Lyft's earnings error. U.S. Gary Gensler said he couldn't comment specifically on the ride-hailing carrier, but there's a responsibility to ensure you have accurate information that you're putting out. Traders using AI. I don't understand what AI is, and then the article cut off.
I think maybe my guess is that they're talking about AI, and they probably don't mean AI. They're really talking about like algorithmic programs.
Right. Yeah.
A bunch of like, orders that sort of like get triggered, or like buy or sell orders that get triggered based on, like certain indicators or certain price targets getting hit. And then a bunch of people who are not paying attention to the news, or who are not necessarily looking at their screens when this news comes out, realize it's like, it was a mistake. They don't have like the bandwidth to sort of act on that. So like maybe when they're talking about like AI trading assisted tools, I know like AI is the buzzword of the century apparently.
Right. But it's just like,
my guess is that they're probably talking about like algorithmic trading tools.
Yeah. That makes sense. Interesting. Man, this is just, I part of me just wants to YOLO some puts, but I don't know.
What's kind of going on, what I'm finding interesting, natural gas is again selling off. I didn't think it could sell off anymore. We had, I don't know, that's got to be lucky, right? When you have 4 consecutive 4% down days. I don't know. Maybe the universe is trying to say something about natural gas, but it's on our 5th consecutive down week. And really, this looks like close to the lows of like mid 2020, 2016.
Wow, it is selling off like crazy. Do you think all that is tied in? Like there's been talks of, peace deals in the Middle East. Do you think that's affecting natural gas at all? Or
actually, I'm kind of curious because like I don't think so. Like biggest.
That's a crazy sell-off. Like,
I know. Whoa. It's just like a warmer winter than people were expecting. That's kind of like at least the consensus I've been hearing about it. But I don't, dude, I stopped trying to make sense of this. I don't know what the fuck's going on with SMCI. We had a 35% move to the upside, unrelated to earnings. It just moved like that. And it's been on a tear ever since. Today we're at a 3 sigma move. Like whatever, what the dude? Okay, so 7th consecutive up week for SMCI. I don't think it really does justice to like the scale at which this thing has moved. In the past like month even. Like, 30% in the last. So in the last 5 trading days, we're up 30%. In the past month, we're up 200%. In the past year, we're up 900%. I don't know. A lot of people have been saying that this is like, it's still undervalued. Like it's still like relative to relative to their fundamentals, like it's supposed to go higher. I've been hearing reports about that, and I'm like, that's crazy to me.
It's like, sounds like Tesla sort of.
A little bit, yeah. And like to me, as a trader, like this price action is ridiculous, like completely unsustainable. But at the same time, like you could argue, right? Like, because it didn't really, like the price did nothing pretty much from like 2015 until like 2023 is when it, or mid 2022 is when it really started to grow. So like you could argue that, they've been undervalued for a very long time, and this is just them catching up. I'm just really just shocked to see how rapidly that growth has been. And it's not just SMCI. There's a bunch of different companies that have more exposure that have been moving like this. And to me as a trader, this looks unsustainable, but I don't know. I've been surprised before. As wild as this shit is, like for me, this makes sense with Nvidia specifically. Because like Nvidia, let me see if I can pull this up real quick. So I got Nvidia. With Nvidia, this makes a little bit more sense to me because this is still like an absurd, like astronomical level of growth. But Nvidia for the longest time was like a video game company. Like everybody thought of video games
for computer games.
When they thought of Nvidia. To me, and maybe that's just because like I'm a gamer and I like video games and computers and I think they're all cool. I feel like it took people a very long time to really understand how much of an impact their business had on everybody, because for a long time they were a video game company. So like this is a really wild level of growth. To me, looks like a lot more reasonable than like whatever this is.
That's just crazy.
It's nuts. And so Nvidia to me makes sense that it was like just intuitively as someone who, is like a little bit familiar with their products and like how people sort of viewed them for a long time and how investors viewed them as a long time, makes a lot more sense. This is still like an absurd level of growth, but to me, it makes a little bit more sense that like, okay, Nvidia is finally catching up to its true value.
And it's like, they're able to play into the AI and like, or peak, AI, everything. So yeah, I guess it's the same for,
SMCI.
SMCI. But oh my gosh.
So I'm here. Let me see if I can find video since 2000. Yeah, which to be fair, hopefully this doesn't mess my chart up. I have to figure out a better one.
I also just can't. Yeah, I don't know. As much as it seems crazy, I think the AI wave is, it's still there. And I just can't see that big of a sell-off, I guess, in AI-related things just yet. I don't know.
I don't think it's happening yet. And now we're in speculation power hour. People in chat, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this as well. Not saying it's a cause, but chip stocks are all a buzz on Wall Street bets. Stonky go moon. This is moon. This is definitely stonky go moon. This is really, especially SMCI. So my assessment of what's going on is that, and Brandon made a good point too. It's Nvidia kind of transitioned into an AI, into a chip company, sort of quietly, people really started to realize the value that they provide. And instead of just being a video game company, you could say maybe it started with crypto, and when crypto started to pop off, people are oh, there's so many applications for these graphic cards that are deeply rooted in technology and the future of maybe infrastructure and all that, right? So with Nvidia, it makes sense. What's going on here in my just to me is that not all of these companies are not necessarily providing the true degree of value that's reflected in their stock price. It's probably going to be any other really big sector hype with crypto, for example, where everyone's oh, crypto is going to be the next big thing. And they started investing in a bunch of different coins, a bunch of different startups, a bunch of different companies with different business models. And now as people are starting to get more acclimated to the space, they're starting to realize, they're starting to weed out the ones that maybe don't provide as much value. Not to say SMCI doesn't provide as much value, but all of these chip stocks are popping off right now. This is not necessarily because they have good businesses.
Yeah, but you still have, I guess I'd equate Nvidia. One, I think they did, under people's noses, transition to a broader, offering, but at the same time, totally played into AI once it got hot. But I guess I'd equate Nvidia to maybe the Ethereum, or maybe, I'd say maybe like Microsoft and OpenAI might be like the Bitcoin of crypto, where these, they're going to be around, right? But then you've got, SMCI and these other players. It's like, okay.
All I know is that I'm done trying to kind of make sense of what's going on, trying to attribute like this price action to something grounded. And Brandon brought up an interesting question, which is that like, overvalued and undervalued, these are all just like opinions for the most part. Like people can use like fundamental analysis to sometimes, like the most I've seen, I guess, is fundamental analysis. But people can use different types of analysis to sort of like peg whether the current share price is fair based on like how much they're producing, how well their earnings are performing, how good their books look. And Luis has done some cool segments about how that assessment is done. But for the most part, like markets are markets, and people kind of arbitrarily value things for the most part.
Totally.
Well, at least for me, like this is part of why, like, for me, I know we talk about price a lot because I also find like the way that things are moving interesting. Like I find the way that prices are moving interesting because like it's a representation of like mass psychology and corporate interests and politics and all this. It's an interesting like compilation of all that, right? But like for me, trading volatility is a lot more intuitive. Like, is volatility going to go up? Is volatility going to go down? Making like directional assumptions around volatility for me seems a lot more sense because you're effectively like, it is also a mapping of psychology. It's like, investor psychology is what you're trying to predict when you're talking about the direction of volatility. But for me, that like understanding how people feel fear makes a lot more sense than trying to understand how people are making investment decisions around price, around a company, around all these different other variables.